Well, I think we have enough to get started. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today to talk about knowledge transfer. If you are new to KMI, I'd just like to give a real quick nod to where you can go for additional resources from us. We are known as the #1 certification provider, and it's the CKM. We're home to the CKM program. If you're not familiar with that, check it out. And we've also expanded into our specialist curriculum, which are basically a deep dive into specific KM topics, one of which is knowledge transfer, which we're getting into today. And we're also known for great free content. You can always go to the webinar section over here in the top right corner and just come down to webinar series for all the latest activity. It's chronologically listed, so if you want to just scroll through that to check out what we've done recently, we hope you do get a chance to do that. These are great presentations, and I like to give a personal nod to John's top 5 themed webinars, which we have several of, and there's the first one there. Which are a great little mini deep dive, if you will, into a specific KM topic. And I like to always give a nod to those top 5 webinars. There's many of them, and there's even top 5 KM failures. So check that out for great free content. And with that, let me go ahead and stop share and introduce our hosts for today. So John Hovell is Managing Director and Co-founder of STRATactical. He's a KMI instructor for the CKM program and various CKS specialist courses, such as knowledge transfer, what we're talking about today, plus organization development and conversational leadership. Dr. Rachel Teague is a TEDx speaker, a master's CKM grad, pro-side change practitioner, knowledge transfer expert, facilitator, adjunct instructor, and there's more, but I think that covers most of it. So without further ado, let me hand it over to our hosts, and thanks again for joining us today.
Thanks, Eric. Rachel, how should we start?
I love the conversational piece and kind of seeing where we're at. So why don't we start with a poll with everybody? Is that where we want to go first, John? The poll.
Sounds good. If you say hello, I'll.
Sure. Yeah.
The poll. Eric, I don't know if I have poll access. Do I?
Let's see. As co-host, you should.
Normally do, but I don't actually see it. Sorry, we should have checked that before.
We could do reactions. Okay, so we'll do reactions as a poll instead.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to make you host, John, just in case that helps, because you were co-host. Now you're host.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right, cool. So welcome, everybody. Today, we are going to talk a little bit more how AI influences knowledge transfer. And we've got all sorts of great conversation ahead, but we really want to kind of drive this webinar based on you folks and what your interests are, because John and I have a million opinions, and we could talk the entire time, but in true to our nature, I want to be able to, offer your input. So if you weren't able to get the poll going, right?
No, so I think we'll do the renaming in Zoom. We
okay, yeah.
So that'll work.
So yeah, and actually we have a deck with the directions on that, I believe. So let me just share my screen and we'll get that up and running. Give me one second.
As Rachel's screens come up, it's kind of funny. The first slide will show if you show the first one, or I can do it if it's easier. I went into ChatGPT and I said, "Hey, could you make a slide, 2 slides for me?" To start a webinar, and I think it's kind of funny, so I hope it brings a smile as you're sharing.
Can you see?
Yeah, and if you go full screen,
yeah, I'm getting there.
Look really closely. The impact, the prompt I gave it was, could you do a title slide that says, "How does artificial intelligence impact knowledge transfer with a balance of people, process, and technology," is what my prompt was to ChatGPT. And if you look really closely, it's close. it shortened artificial intelligence to AI. Fine. I think there's a little bias there. For me, AI is actually appreciative inquiry more than artificial intelligence, but letters and acronyms are what they are. And if you look really closely, it spelled knowledge transfer wrong. So then I said, "Hey, could you update the spelling of knowledge transfer?" And it said, "No, I can't." So I just hope, to show that, like, I'm not trying to put down artificial intelligence at all, but just to show how early we still are.
For sure.
Is the full screen not working for you?
Is it? I think it's actually showing the wrong screen on my end. Give me a second and I'll reshare. Okay, 1 second. Sorry about that.
Yeah. And yeah, Carrie, I did have to use ChatGPT 4 to actually, because I think 4 is the only one that brings.
Is that better? Is that the full screen?
There we go. Yep.
All right, cool.
And if you go,
so we did have the agenda too, similarly to what John was saying. This is also put through his piece or ChatGPT to kind of see what you can see how it is set up here and
that's
how
our very clear agenda for today.
Super clear. Yep.
If you read through that, yeah.
So since we can't get the poll itself up and running, what we'll have you do is we'll have you respond in Zoom. So if you could change your name, rename yourself on whether or not you think that, or your interest is more you're more interested in artificial intelligence as being before knowledge transfer, and then AI would be your second option for B, or C would be a balance of both knowledge transfer and AI together. So if you could rename yourself with an A in front of your name, if you're thinking that AI should be before knowledge transfer. If you think that knowledge transfer is before AI, I want you to put a B in front of your name when you rename. And then finally, the C in front of your name will indicate that you think that there should be a balance. So we'll give everybody just a moment to do so.
And Lee Bong has a good question in chat. Before is one word. We also talked about, do you think it's artificial intelligence that's impacting knowledge transfer? And you want to hear about that? Or we also use the word influencing.
Yes.
So for Lee Bong, or if everybody else, if that helps, before, influence, or impact. So yeah, before, influencing, or impacting. It's really, we're just trying to get a feel for this more of an AI talk, more of a knowledge transfer talk, or more of a balanced talk.
Excellent. So I'm starting to see some C's. I'm starting to see a few B's. I see one A. So far, I'm just scrolling through the participants on my side to see what I can see here. Seeing some B's and some C's. So I see a nice balance. It looks like a majority of our group here feels like there should be that balance of AI and knowledge transfer, like influencing each other as opposed to one over the other. This is nice. So as we start to kind of start our conversation, I'm going to just leave this up for a moment. Our conversation will kind of be led with the balance of knowledge transfer and AI intact here. So what I'll do is I'm going to just discontinue the share for a moment so John and I can go back to our conversation pieces. Great. So John, where people are interested in the balance of AI or the influence or how they influence each other, what are your initial thoughts with that?
Knowing when to interact with people and knowing when to interact with artificial intelligence, and somehow figuring out these new societal, cultural norms around how much like AI and interpersonal skills can be balanced. Like, for example, I've got ChatGPT open on my phone right now, and one of the newer things that I know of in ChatGPT 4 is that you can use your microphone on your phone and you can speak to it. And you can imagine the little step it's taken is it's basically just taking your question, converting it to text, doing its creation of content, and then reading that content to you. But the one little nuance that I love that they've added to it is if you use the microphone and speak to it, at the end of it reading all of its new content to you, it will always ask you a question. Ooh. They've put in that little nuance of like, let's make this a little bit of a back and forth, as opposed to if you don't use the microphone, it just gives you text. There's no question at the end. So I could almost demo that, but to my point of that actually feels a little awkward to me. I'd actually rather not show you that. So I'm purposefully staying on the let's chat with Rachel.
Yeah.
So how about you, Rachel? How would you balance AI and knowledge transfer?
So I love what you were saying with that, because my first indication, it's not that I'm against AI at all. We're moving into a world where we have to be able to accept and embrace and either move with the change or not, right? So with AI becoming more predominant in our field, I feel like that we got to keep up with it. But at the same time, too, people forget that you need that human touch to train the AI. And that's where I love the question aspect of your ChatGPT at the very end, asking, hey, like, making it more conversational. Well, as much as you can with the robot, right? Those chat bots or whatever. Especially with knowledge transfer, when I'm doing knowledge transfer, I have typically a set of questions that I will ask or kind of use as a guide for my conversations when I'm doing the transfer, but I need to inherently know, like, I need to follow what path the conversation takes. If I am doing a knowledge transfer for something I don't understand, and I usually start with teach me like I know nothing, I don't know what I don't know. So the questions will pop up, and I can't always guarantee that every question I could ever think of will be on my list of predefined questions. So I think that having that balance would be able to kind of help with the conversation in making sure that I'm capturing everything I need. But I don't think if I were to kick transfer over to AI 100%, it would think of all those weird, intricate questions that could pop out.
When we were prepping for this, I really appreciated your thought about healthy skepticism of AI. It's helpful for me too, because I do, admittedly, I sort of fall into, well, I trust it to go look at trillions and trillions of documents and links and everything it can go find, and then skillfully create this new content. But I think I assume many of us know that, like, if you ask it for references, it will give you a list of references. But then if you actually go into Google Scholar or anywhere and search, quite frequently those references don't actually exist.
Yeah.
Like this healthy, like, what's the other joke? Like, don't let truth get in the way of a good story. Like,
right.
Like, let's use it as an input to the conversation so that we can then continue whatever knowledge transfer it is we're aiming for.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was talking to a good friend of mine who works at a medical company and is doing a lot of research. And she had this slide deck open that a doctor, like an MD, had given her to kind of go through and condense for a presentation they were working on. And the resources that were provided in the slideshow itself was very similar. They weren't formatted correctly, as far as that's actually what flagged it. The citations weren't put in correctly. So then when she went to go check the citation, she realized that the information, the medical information, didn't exist. Not to say that it was incorrect 100%, but it just wasn't what they needed for that particular. It was just miscited, if you will. So I typically, regardless, and I go into any conversation, whether it's knowledge or AI or political or personal, like, I am 100% fine with differing opinions and different perspectives, but I want you to educate yourself in a way that you are confident, right? Like, I'm not going to go to Wikipedia and use that as my single source of truth. I'm going to, go to some trusted sources that I find. So I'm just afraid that people start to use knowledge, AI for knowledge transfer as that single source of truth. And that's where the skepticism lies for me. I don't care where you get your info, as long as you feel confident in your research. So, which
then goes to my last point here, which is, and then we'll go to breakouts. The knowledge illusion, or the illusion of knowledge. There's this guy out there, Richard Borgassian, I think is his name. Don't quote me on that. You'll have to look it up. But he kind of self-labeled himself the street epistemologist.
Yeah.
Epistemology being the study of knowledge. And what he does, a little bit controversial, a little bit provocative. He'll go to like Times Square or Trafalgar Square or some major city block, and he'll grab people on the streets and say, "Hey, what's your most deeply held belief? If you're willing to share that with me." And people give some pretty personal or pretty big, somewhat commonly held beliefs. And then he'll say, "Okay, great. Follow-up question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you really believe that? And how much can you prove that?" 10 being I can absolutely believe it, absolutely prove it, 1 being actually not at all. And so, of course, most people stand 8, 9, 10. And you can kind of pick up on his process. If they stand on 10, he says, thank you very much. It sounds like you really believe in that. But if they stand on a 9 or below, he really engages in a conversation. And some of these things are, again, like really big things that would be hard to, sway yourself from. So the knowledge illusion, or the illusion of knowledge, is the checking with yourself. So just like we're saying, like, hey, healthy skepticism of AI, maybe even a healthy skepticism of yourself. Where did you get that from? Are you just regurgitating what other people have told you? How much have you sort of checked in and looked around your individual reality, the shared reality? How much of this is a real deep understanding and true knowledge for you, which then directly relates to knowledge transfer? I'll say the biggest clue for me, and it's kind of where I am right now as I'm speaking and offering this content, is if people are struggling for words in any language, they tend to be closer to their learning edge. Whereas if you're flying through words, it's more likely that it's something you've said before or you heard somewhere else, right? As opposed to like a new creation, a new syntax, a new context that comes up for you. So that's something I'm paying attention to. Rachel, how about for you? Final thought?
Final thought. It's funny too, because like I'll relate so much to parenting as well, because that's a huge part of my life along with knowledge. But I think too that as the generations that are upcoming get older, it's more predominant, more than ever, to be able to have the conversations with them about, like, just because AI is saying it doesn't mean it's true. Just because you read it on the internet doesn't mean that it's true. So keeping that in mind, and then being able to kind of like, I have that conversation all the time with one of my kids. He'll just say something blanket. Of course, he's 8, right? And I'll be like, well, where did you learn that? And he goes, well, I just know it. And I'm like, okay, so it's an 8 in fact. It's an 8 in fact. And he's like, yeah, I guess you're right. So with AI being such an accessible resource, I think too that it should help challenge the conversations to not necessarily, use it as that source of truth, but to enhance the conversation as well. So yeah, your 4-year-old does the same. And does AI cite the reference of where the material is from? I think it depends on which AI which you're using. John, you did our slides and stuff. Have you had more experience with this directly? Because I have not yet. I'm hesitant on the AI train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Norma, if you ask it, it does. And then that's what I was kind of half joking, half serious before that. If you then, as a human, double check those references, they're often just like the rest of the content it's creating as best it can. It's creating new references that don't actually exist. Sometimes they do, but often they're made up references. So yes, it does reference, but then you have to validate that those
reference the reference.
References. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So that puts us right at 20 minutes, which I think is perfect. Rachel, do you mind if we jump over to breakouts? Let's go 15 minutes. I've tried. We've got so many people that put the letter C in front of their name that what I've ended up doing, our goal was to have like an A, a B, and a C in every room, but we knew it wouldn't be perfect, of course. So there are several rooms where there's an A, a B, and a C, but then most of the rooms are 3 or 4 people that are looking for the balance of artificial intelligence and knowledge transfer. So let's go about 15 minutes in breakouts. And the prompt question for you, I'll put in chat, is what stood out for you most in Rachel and John's comments? What in the last 15, 20 minutes, what stood out for you? What's popped up for you? What would you like to chat about?
Yeah, use it as a springboard and go from there. We'll come back and we'll debrief.
See you in 15 minutes.
All right. Welcome back for those folks who've come back already. Looks like we've got a few more finishing the last seconds of their meeting.
Hi, Rachel. Good to see you again.
Hey, great to see you too. It's always good to connect with you folks.
Rachel, yeah, I like seeing your name.
Oh, good. Thank you.
All right. I think we're all coming back to the main room. Let's give it a second. 39 people. Pretty good group size, but I think we can do this. Let's do it both like audio and chat.
Sure.
The prompt question for everybody now is, what's your latest thinking? I was able to join a room, had a fantastic conversation. Thank you both. We're not looking for a debrief from every room. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for now like a 38-person conversation. Maybe
did something change for you? Did something new come in? Like, where's your head now?
Yeah.
And feel free to chat or just, I see Nicole, raise your hand. Go ahead, Nicole.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, good. I took off my headphones, so I wasn't sure. So I would say that for me, one of the most important, do you want us to like share what the answer to the question for ourselves? Is that what you wanted?
Sure. However you want to do it. If you want to share if your thinking's changed or what, feel free to.
Sure. So, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. We had great conversation in my group. And I would just say probably for me, one of the most important things that kind of came out of it, was the importance that, with AI, and I think John said it before, that it's okay to use AI, but if you do use it, it's very important to fact check. It's very important to ensure that you're not sharing information that could be false, could be, misleading or whatever. So that's just very important for people to recognize. It's great to have this opportunity to use AI, but you still have to do you have to do the work and additional, to just ensure that it's not incorrect information. But that was good for me. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Well said.
Who's next?
Well, if it gives everybody a minute to think, Rachel, what you and I talked about was, let me share my screen for a second.
Yeah.
I've got ChatGPT open, so let's ask it. Here's the prompt I'm thinking. How can we balance artificial intelligence and knowledge transfer? And then, Rachel and I've added in especially tacit knowledge that can't really be documented. So the real tacit knowledge management side. I have no idea what it's going to say. So let's give it a second. And
it's thinking.
I think this will prove the point. Maybe we stumped it. That'd be even better. All right.
There we go.
This was the point that kind of came up in our room as well. It's like, using it as an input, right? It's the same thing Nicole was just saying too. Like, we would need to validate these things, but this can spark conversation for us. So Rachel and I offered some of our thoughts. All right, here's a really clean list with some bold headers of human-centric artificial intelligence design, interactive learning systems, knowledge elicitation techniques, augmented reality, collaborative robots, machine learning, ethnographic approaches, mentorship and storytelling. There you go, John. Got your storytelling in there. Well done. Feedback loops. There you go.
Requires a multifaceted approach that, respects the complexity and subtlety of the human expertise. By leveraging technology aside human-centric methods, it's possible to create systems that enhance extend the reach of tacit knowledge rather than attempting to replace it. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Earl.
Good morning, guys. Hey, I was in a group with just a couple of folks, and one of the highlights from that group was not necessarily just answering the question that we were in the group talking about, but it's still surprising to me how many organizations don't quite buy into knowledge management as knowledge transfer and as a discipline. That thing still exists, and it's amazing. One of the thoughts that I took away from the conversations we've had thus far and in our breakout group was, the conversation around a trained enterprise artificial intelligence solution versus an untrained, maybe just a chat GPT prompt that you go out and you just do on your own. And those are really two totally different exercises in transferring knowledge. And I wanted to ask you guys to better define in which kind of realm are we talking about here? Are we talking about more of an enterprise solution where that enterprise has taken the time to manage their knowledge, whether it's explicit or tacit, and then using that AI solution for knowledge transfer? Or are we talking about the untrained, perhaps, ad hoc artificial intelligence that we might get from not properly engineering prompts to use with a chat GPT-4 or a BARD or something like that?
Interesting question. John, I'll kick it to you.
I got lots of thoughts on it. Yeah, sure. I was writing notes too. Don't forget them. So I heard the buy-in for knowledge management at the beginning. Yep, that is still, in the KMI 5-day class, every single time without exaggeration. We talk all about knowledge management as best we can in 5 days, which, a lot of you can barely even touch the surface in 5 days. And like underneath almost every single point of KM is, yeah, but my boss, that's not what they're asking me to do, or they don't believe this, or they want me to prove it with numbers and I can't prove intangibles. I can't prove something that you can't see, that kind of stuff. So it's still all kinds of thoughts on the buy-in side. But then what I really heard and what I was writing down notes is like, are we talking about enterprise or organizational AI versus world AI? That reminds me of Nancy Dixon's work. So Nancy Dixon in Texas has put together that chart that has the 3 eras of knowledge management. And then she's just recently added in the 4th era of knowledge management. So since the mid-90s, when it all really officially got started, the first era was really information management. It was writing stuff down, right? And getting stuff tagged and shared. And we still do that to this day. But we added in about 5 years later, around 2000, we added in all of our excitement about tacit knowledge, the stuff that can never be written down, or once it's written down, it's already out of date, or just holding the difference between tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge. Great. We still do that. In her chart, she calls it experience management. And then the 3rd level is right to your question, Earl. She called it collective knowledge, which we got very excited to learn this thing around, 2005-ish, where it's like, hold on, there are individuals that have knowledge. There are small little groups or project teams that have knowledge, but there's something different that exists at an organizational level. 5, 10, 20, 50, 150,000 people have a certain type of knowledge that's different from projects and individuals. And knowledge management got very excited about, how do we learn inside a whole organization, or learn and transfer and retain across organizations? Great. Earl, really to your question, her 4th era is creating a vaccine for a global pandemic, right? How do we collectively learn across 7 or 8 billion people? Or the one I like to bring up every time is systemic racism. How do we shift that across 7 or 8 billion people, as well as inside? So I don't know if I'm directly answering enough, but to me, it's a both and then to go really tactical for my final thought is, yeah, in the stuff that David Gertine, and I know Rachel's excited about it too, this whole new emerging field of conversational leadership, we have built 2 enterprise conversational leadership AI coaches, where purposefully, instead of it reaching out to the world, everything ever documented and saying, hey, what is conversational leadership? We've only fed it with our books, or David calls it a blook. A blog meets a book. His thousands of articles that he's written, and that's the only content we offer it, so that when we ask it questions, it regurgitates our own stuff, and yet it does it with new words. And so it does further our thinking, and then, it's learning. So it is, my short answer is both. Inside the organization, but also leaning on some of the stuff that's broader than the organization.
Gotcha. And I just to quickly follow up on that, one of the things that Rachel had mentioned was her was her cautious optimism with AI. And I think it was important to determine, if that was by, a trained AI solution, or if it was just something that was like a chat GPT, like you just open up an account, you go to chat GPT and you start typing away and looking for answers. and understanding that there are two different ways to receive information from artificial intelligence. One is something that's trained, where you could be a little bit more confident that what you're going to get can be accurate based on the governance that you feed it and the solution that you provide. Or there's the other option where it's totally untrained. And it's just something that you just started kind of typing a question into. And that is where I think Rachel was going with her cautiousness and the optimism, and whether or not that type of answer that you might receive is accurate and that you can use that as a resource, so on and so forth. So I just thought it was important just to kind of touch on both of those types of things.
For sure. Yeah, thank you.
Kim?
Oh, you're muted, Kim.
I'm mute.
There you go.
Just to kind of piggyback off that, as we all know that sometimes we have difficulty getting people on board for managing knowledge. Do you feel that our or corporations or enterprises' lack of commitment to knowledge management is going to make it more challenging to use AI? Because I feel like if we're not properly managing the knowledge correctly, making sure that it is a single source of truth, like how can we truly use the AI if we don't have, I guess, the knowledge to start with, right? If the knowledge is all over the place, if they haven't allowed us to get the tribal knowledge out of your brain, basically, and put it somewhere, like how will we ever be able to use Gen AI? Just asking your opinion, I guess.
Rachel, what do you think?
I saw that Susan came off of mute. It looks like she might have a thought. I want to give another voice in the room, so I'm going to pass it to Susan.
Oh, thank you so much. So, it's interesting because at our company, everyone is all crazy about AI. They think it's the bomb. It's going to be awesome. We should be on the train leading the initiative. But then, of course, the knowledge manager is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What are we doing here? How are we going to manage? How are we going to organize this? We can't just use this fun new tool without having some parameters installed and having our content kind of curated to the point where it is useful and accessible and can be legally shared. I mean, that's a big thing with my company is intellectual property rights and copyright and making sure that that's all in alignment with our with policy or having a policy, so to speak. So I think when I had put, obviously there's a C in front of my name, and I think it's a balance because it's a great tool, but healthy skepticism, I think, is the knowledge, the word of the day or the phrase of the day. I think it's inspiring people, the idea of using AI to share their knowledge, but you almost having to kind of hold them back a little bit to make sure that we have our ducks in a row moving forward.
Excellent. Kim, does that give you a little more clarity or thought?
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of we were on the same page because everyone is so pro AI and we have to be the initiators of this and get on the train, as she said. But then you get on the train and you realize like half the wheels aren't there, the track's missing, what the hell you're doing, and that's kind of how it's been.
Yeah, excellent. I would agree there. Thank you both for contributing. Cynthia, I see your hands up.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not on camera. I'm a little under the weather today. But just to answer Kim and to add to what Susan said, so my company too, they just jumped on the Gen AI bandwagon, right? It's exploded. We actually have teams dedicated to Gen AI. And for me, I'm going to be standing up a KM Center of Excellence, which is the first from where, in my company. But, one of the things they said is, okay, we got Gen AI, we can fix KM. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, Gen AI does not fix KM. It can enable it. So when I built my presentation to help the leadership understand how we can leverage Gen AI, it was about creating reusable patterns. And one of those patterns is, how do we use Gen AI to capture knowledge, right? Because one of my big gaps is undocumented. And, you know, when I talk to users, it's Cynthia, I don't have the time. And Cynthia, I don't know what to capture. So we'd like to, you know, use GenAI to create something that interviews those people, that asks the right prompts, that captures that knowledge, and then we funnel it through. So even in my company, everyone was super excited and, you know, all own driving out those patterns. But I also mentioned, they're like, well, it's going to fix our search. And I'm like, well, no, because garbage in, garbage out, and our content is all over. So we need to create a content strategy. We need to create business rules. We need to metadata and label and all that stuff. So I think as it emerges, companies get really excited. But from a KM standpoint, I'm like, we all have to be clear. It doesn't solve it. It enables it. And here's how. So we've actually, you know, in my KM framework that I'm building over the next 12 months, I have couple of things where I'm going to integrate GenAI into KM, because I can't fix everything. And there's other things I need to focus on when we talk about knowledge management. But, you know, I still want to integrate GenAI into the KM world and show results on how we can fix it. But we also, you know, I've also told the leadership we need to not Gatorade just yet, because, you know, we're still learning everything GenAI can do. So my two big things that I want to use it for, where I've kind of told everyone, you know, let's pick two and see what we can do, is, you know, undocumented and doing that. And then, you know, the buried. So how do we use transcripts from recordings and pull out pertinent content so we can then store that in the LLM so people can have access to it. So I've kind of faced the same things as Kim and Susan, where, you know, the COE that will help lead and kind of kind of put like frames around what we want to do. So we're not just building and building and building, and our KM is still, you know, kind of in a messy like type thing. So that's kind of what we're doing at my company.
That's great. I want to sort of piggyback off of that, because I think this is where it will fit nicely. But I was introduced to a company back at KM World called Sugarwork, and I dropped the link right in the chat in response to Alexis's ideas, questions she's pondering. But Sugarwork, I have not been able to use it specifically because it does not quite align with the way I do knowledge transfer at the university I work for. But it's what they have is they have an AI knowledge transfer program that they have set up. So it would work really well in a call center or something where there's a lot of similar roles that are repeatable, where let's say I am looking to either leave my role or train John. John and I would agree to go to a breakout room in Teams or Zoom or whatever they use, and we would answer some specifically defined questions. And then what the AI would do is go through and read the transcript and then like code and file everything for you and spit out a synopsis of the conversations. So if I were to say, you know, specific to customer experience, and this is how I do the customer experience, I would get everything pulled out. And I was thinking about how wonderful that would have been from like a coding perspective when I was doing my research for my doctorate. That would have like made my life so much easier. But where that gets tricky, and I was talking to the folks who have developed Sugarwork, where you have some of that unique tacit. I don't always know what I don't know, or sometimes I can go in with a guideline of questions, but I can't always go in with, this is every question I'm ever going to have on this process until I'm actually in it. So I have yet to find a way that it would work for me, but I'm interested to kind of follow them along to see how it sounds like it's a wonderful tool, you know, for specific circumstances. So that might help with some of the tacit that you're trying to grab. This is not a promotion for them or anything, but it's a resource out there that is certainly something to look into. So, yeah. Any last thoughts, John? We're closing in.
I just went so I turned on the AI companion for this meeting the whole time. And so I just asked it, one of the things I kind of always like to play with at the end of most Zoom calls is I said, what are the main takeaways from this meeting? And it's usually pretty hilarious. I know some of you have been in a group with me when I've done this. It often will say, well, this group really didn't have a clear agenda and the conversation varied, so I'm unsure of the main takeaways. That's usually how it responds. It didn't this time. So here's what it said this time. The main takeaways from this meeting are centered around the topic of AI and its influence on knowledge transfer. Participants discussed importance of striking a balance between AI and human input in order to ensure a comprehensive understanding and effective knowledge transfer. They emphasize the need for healthy skepticism when it comes to relying solely on AI-generated content, as it may not always be accurate or provide reliable information. Additionally, and finally, the participants touched on the significance of individual critical thinking and the importance of verifying references and sources.
Wow.
Not bad, right?
Not bad at all.
So sometimes it does something. And for me, if we had more time now, I would want that to spark, well, what did you agree with and disagree with in that synopsis and why? And that would further the conversation. And yes, Nicole, I should be able to copy and paste this into the chat like this. Everyone. There you go.
Excellent.
They're the main takeaways. So
great.
Rachel, Eric, final words?
No, I always love doing these. So thanks, Eric, for, inviting us to speak. And John, always thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. Thank you so much. I hope to do it again. And let's keep this going. A lot of momentum.
For sure. All right. Have a great day, folks.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.